Alright everyone, welcome to the channel. I want to do a video today on men's work and how important this is and how healing and helpful it is for men. So I've been doing men's work for quite a few months now, probably about 7 months, and we do it every other Wednesday. And it's such a healing practice, just getting together with several peers. We do it every other week. And yeah, man, it's powerful. So I'll just explain how the type of men's work I'm involved in, and it's structured around. There's a really amazing book that I highly recommend. I've read it many times and listened to the audiobook numerous times as well, and it's called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover: Archetypes of the Mature Masculine, I believe. I think that's the subtitle, Archetypes of the Mature Masculine. And so this men's circle that I take part in at the community centre I'm heavily involved in is structured around these 4 archetypes of the masculine. So we have 4 rounds. So we start off with the lover's round, the lover round, lover archetype. And so that is basically actually, before we get into the rounds, everybody is smudged. Each man smudges another man, and then we call in the directions and guides and archetypes and things like that. So we create a sacred space, basically, in the circle. And then the first round is the lover's round. And so this is basically each man gets a certain amount of time to share. So you might get, like, depending on how busy it is, you might get 3 minutes. And the idea is to just get into your heart and share whatever's coming up in the moment. And the idea is, when you're not sharing, is just to listen, just to get into your heart and listen, not be sort of thinking about so much what they're saying or thinking about so much what you're going to say. Just really getting into that heart space and holding space for that other man to express where they're at. So yeah, that's the first round. And then the second round is the warrior round. And this is quite interesting. So there's a few aspects to this. So firstly, we stand in a circle, and the first invitation is, if any man feels they're out of integrity within themselves, so perhaps they've said they were going to do something in the men's group prior and they haven't done it, or perhaps they just feel they're out of integrity in some way generally in their life, or perhaps they're out of integrity, feel they're out of integrity within the circle. So that's a chance for a man to step into his own power and say, look, I'm out of integrity for whatever reason. Then the second part of that is, if any other man in the circle feels another man is out of integrity, they can call that man out, essentially, but in a friendly way, just saying, okay, I feel you're out of integrity here. And then the other aspect to this round is, if any man has a charge with another man. So I do this at a community centre, as I mentioned, that I'm really heavily involved in. So, things can come up in community between people, even if you're in, even if you're like in a, even if you're all on the spiritual path and in tune with your own shadow and things like that, issues can still come up between people. So this is a great, focused, safe way for any of those issues to be expressed. So basically, if a man had a charge with another man, then the facilitator or another brother in the circle would act as a facilitator, and that charge could be expressed. And the point of this is what's always got to be realised and pulled back into is that whoever has the charge with a man, an issue or whatever, that's the charge thing, if they've got a specific issue, it's recognising that whoever has the charge, that's their stuff, and essentially the other man is a mirror for that. But it allows for these disagreements or maybe it's literally the other man has done nothing, and it's just triggering this man in the man with the charge in a certain way from, like some childhood thing or something. So it's always pulled into the space of the man with the charge. It's his work, and the other man is a mirror. And yeah, so conflicts or disagreements can be resolved in that way, and this is really quite powerful. Like for someone like me, in the past I've had a fear of getting into conflict in general, but I guess with other males, because one thing about masculine conflict, there's always, like, underneath it all on some level, there's like the threat of an escalation to violence. So that's something I've worked on myself over the years. Actually, after reading the book I mentioned at the start a number of years ago, I realized that I felt a little out of balance on the warrior archetype. I felt pretty imbalanced on the other ones when I was reading it through at that point in time. So yeah, it got me. I literally just like started watching UFC for about 8 months or something, just to really get accustomed to that kind of, just to get accustomed to violence and not having like fear about it or anything. But anyway, that's that's like a side point. So yeah, this warrior charge round aspect is really powerful in that way, because it allows a safe space for these things to be expressed. And then after that, the third round, and this is probably the most powerful round in my opinion, and that is the magician round. So tied into the magician's archetype. And this is a place where so you go around the circle of men and asking, if they were to do work tonight, what would it be? And this is often things like, you might have a certain childhood trauma or an issue with your father, for example, or could be something relevant that's currently in your life. And so you'll say what you would work on if you were to do the work on that evening. And then basically it's like a little countdown, 3, 2, 1, and everyone puts up their hands between 0 and 10, with the fingers. And whoever kind of has the most, if you've got a lot of incentive to do the work that night, you might put like a 9 or a 10 or an 8 or something. If you don't really feel it's your night, you might just put up a 1 or a 2 or whatever. And anyway, so it's usually got about time for 2 men to do work, so the top 2 will do the work that evening. And so what this can look like is, going into deep trauma. So, for example, somebody could be doing some work with issues with their father from when they were younger. And so the men will like hold space for this, for the man whose work it is to really go deep. And we do things like reenacting past traumatic situations. So one man will be facilitating and guiding this, and other men can like play roles of people who were involved in past trauma. So you might be able to go back into one of those situations. So it's a bit like regression therapy in a certain way, and it's acted out by your brothers in that circle. And so yeah, so a man might go really deep into some childhood thing, and then it can lead into other things, and so other men will play that role. So one man might play that person's father, and another man might play other people who are around in that scene. And you can relive it, really going back into that trauma. But then the beautiful thing about it, and what makes it really powerful, for one, going into that trauma just in front of peers, other men, it takes a lot of strength and vulnerability, which is healing in and of itself. But also, you are allowing to relive that, and then but create resolution. So you might be able to express all this anger you had at your father. You might be able to say how you actually felt. You're going back into that childhood space and express it, and so really release any resentment you might have. But then it could get to a place after that of real deep healing, where you can forgive and maybe embrace the person who's playing your father. Or another thing that I've witnessed being done there is someone will play that man's actual father, and then someone could play like the divine father, essentially like the father, the ideal father. What would the ideal father have done in that situation? So after the trauma's been relived, the ideal divine father, might come in and hold that person, or tell them that they love them or they're safe or whatever. And just, yeah, it's just incredibly powerful. It's so beautiful. It's so powerful and transformative. And I've seen just profound healing. I've felt it in myself, and I've seen it in other men in these circles. So that's generally the magician's round, and then whoever's done the work will kind of sit on a chair. It's just kind of mocked up like a bit of a kingly chair with something draped over it, just to sit in that power and integrate that work they've done. And then finally, we have a king's round, and this can look one of two ways. Sometimes, maybe if we're a bit short of time and the magician's round's gone on for a while, that could just be a short share round where you would just say where you're at from that kind of king position of after doing the work and after going through all these processes. So that would be like a short version of it. But usually, and when we've got time, this round can be played out as there's a king's throne, and each man will take turns in sitting in that throne, and all the other men will essentially praise that man and show him and tell him what qualities, kingly qualities, essentially, like what is their gold, what gold do they see in that man, and just to hear that kind of stuff from your brothers and peers, especially when you're in a community of peers and friends, it's beautiful and deeply healing. And yeah, so that's basically it. And I just wanted to share this because it's really deep work, and I really think men need that space. Women, need that their space as well. But obviously, just talking about the masculine from the male perspective here, it's beautiful, like doing healing work in mixed groups and socializing in mixed groups. But there's also a certain kind of energy when it's just males together, or conversely, like when it's just females together, that a different kind of work can be done. And just having that space every couple of weeks to go and be with other men in in a deeply loving and mature environment where all your shadow, fears, darkness, insecurities are all welcome, and all your gold and strength and beauty is welcome, and it's all honored. So yeah, I think this is really important stuff. We're living in a culture where in some sectors, on some level, the idea of male and female, masculine and feminine, is kind of being dissolved, and I don't know, I don't want to say under attack, but it's important to tune into our masculine and feminine energies, and for men to get into their masculine, divine, masculine power. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that, like encourage people to set up these kind of groups in their own communities, or go to groups that are already up, and just reach out to other men. It's beautiful and healing, and really can help on the spiritual path or the awakening path, or just generally healing in any way. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that and send in lots of love. All right, see you in the next video. Peace. Bye.